When it was cloudy, it was very dark, pitch black. We would think we were all alone. And then sometimes people would just appear out of the darkness. Now, that is actually a memory from a young boy growing up in the Mississippi Delta, just sitting on his porch, staring out into the night. And honestly, it perfectly captures that eerie, kind of spine-tingling feeling of isolation. You look out into this vast, empty void, totally convinced you're on your own, until suddenly something or someone emerges right out of the shadows.
And that brings us to a massive, really mind-bending question. Will sentient life just appear out of the seeming darkness of space? I mean, with more stars in the universe than grains of sand on every beach on Earth, it honestly feels a bit arrogant to assume we're the only ones here, right? So the ultimate goal of this explainer is exactly that, figuring out who or what is hiding out there in the dark.
Okay, let's dive into this. Profiling the extraterrestrial, a science detective story. Today, we're basically going to treat astrobiologists like cosmic detectives. Since we can't exactly visit galactic crime scenes in person, we have to piece together clues, profile our suspects, and try to figure out exactly what kind of life might be waiting for us. It's an incredible mystery, and let me tell you, the clues are truly stranger than fiction.
This cosmic manhunt has actually been going on for decades. Take 1969, for instance. A 220-pound rock called the Murchison meteorite crashes into Australia. But it wasn't just a rock. It was absolutely loaded with amino acids, the literal building blocks of life. It essentially rained clues down on Earth, proving the ingredients for life are just scattered all throughout the solar system. Then in 1977, SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, picks up the famous WOW signal. We're talking 72 seconds of an engineered pulse from deep space that we have never, to this day, been able to explain. Fast forward to 1997, SETI gets this massive, structured signal. The team is going crazy thinking, this is it, we found them, only to realize it was a false alarm triggered by our own SOHO space probe. It just goes to show you how insanely difficult and thrilling this whole wiretap of the universe really is.
But we can't just sit around waiting for signals or meteorites to fall into our laps, right? We have to actively hunt for habitats. And to do that, we use the Kepler Space Telescope's transit method. The concept is elegantly simple. Step 1, you have a star that's shining continuously. Step 2, a planet passes in front of it. Step 3, that transit casts a shadow, which causes a tiny, microscopic dip in the star's light. By hunting for these tiny little dips, Kepler has uncovered thousands of planetary crime scenes where alien life could be hiding. Once we actually find a planet, we have to profile the suspect. Like, what would an alien actually look like? Well, basic physics dictates biology. If an alien evolved on a massive planet with high gravity, say 5 times the gravity of Earth, it definitely couldn't look like us. The physics would demand thick legs, heavily muscled limbs, or maybe even a creature squished totally flat to the ground just to survive the crushing weight. But conversely, on a world with, let's say, half of Earth's gravity, you might find incredibly tall, thin, almost avatar-like beings. The environment is quite literally the sculptor of the alien body. And that brings us to one of Kepler's most fascinating discoveries, super-Earths. These are massive, rocky planets, weighing in at up to 5 times as heavy as our Earth. Because they're so massive, their internal heat drives extremely fast plate tectonics. Now, this is actually great for life because it creates a highly stable, regulated surface temperature. But here is the catch. All that intense internal pressure might actually prevent a molten core from spinning, which means no protective magnetic field. Without a magnetic field, the planet just gets relentlessly bombarded by lethal radiation from its star. So any life trying to make it there would need heavy metal-laced shells, incredible genetic repair mechanisms, or they might just have to live entirely underground to survive the onslaught. And this perfectly illustrates how extreme conditions breed extreme biology. Let's look at a theoretical example on the exoplanet Gliese 581d. This is a world locked in permanent twilight, just blasted by constant winds. Biologists have actually modeled the kind of life that could survive here. You'd have what they call kite plants. These are organisms anchored to the ground but using the fierce wind shear to fly high into the atmosphere just to harvest what little light there is. Then you've got the albatross, a massive blind aerial predator that glides for days using dynamic soaring, hunting its prey entirely by sonar. And the prey? The nautilus. Picture a creature with an armored shell, ears specifically tuned to hear the sonar ping a hunting albatross, and a built-in jet propulsion system to just blast out of the way at the very last second. It's essentially continuous, high-stakes biological warfare in the dark. Section 1. Profiling the alien mind. We almost always assume an alien mind will resemble a human one, right? A centralized brain processing information. But to truly prepare for first contact, we need to look at Earth's most alien thinkers. Consider the cuscuta vine. It has no brain, no eyes, and yet it solves incredibly complex problems. It's a parasitic plant that effectively operates like a botanical serial killer. As it grows, it uses a highly tuned sense of smell to actively hunt down healthy host plants, like a tomato. It probes its environment, locates the victim purely by scent, wraps around it, and drains its resources. Plants on our own planet communicate using chemical distress signals and solve environmental puzzles without a single neuron. So an alien mind might be entirely decentralized, rooted in chemistry rather than electricity. Or what if their intelligence is distributed across thousands of different bodies? Let's look at the ant superorganism quorum. Step 1. A single scout ant goes out and assesses a potential new nest. Step 2, it returns and teaches exactly one follower the route. Step 3, that follower then returns to recruit more. And once they hit step 4, a specific quorum threshold, the entire colony instantly commits to the decision. What's absolutely wild here is that computer models show this exact process is literally identical to how individual neurons fire and make decisions inside a primate brain. No single ant knows what the big picture is, but collectively, they form a brilliant, calculating superorganism. And then, of course, we have the octopus. It's arguably Earth's closest analog to a highly intelligent alien. An octopus possesses roughly 500 million neurons. But here's the crazy part. More than half of those neurons aren't even in its head. They're spread out across its 8 arms. It operates as a distributed processing system, very much like a network of computers. If you were to sever an octopus's arm, that arm can still execute complex, coordinated movements entirely on its own. So if we do encounter intelligent aliens, why on earth should we assume their brains are neatly packed inside a skull? Their consciousness could be networked across limbs, or maybe even across entire populations. Now, you might be thinking, if they think so differently, could we ever hope to even talk to them? The answer might actually be a surprising yes, and it's all thanks to the concept of cultural evolution. See, when humans pass language down through generations, it doesn't stay rigid. The language itself adapts, it mutates, and naturally shifts to become shorter, simpler, and way easier for new brains to learn. Because this is a universal mechanism of how information survives over time, any advanced alien civilization would likely have a language that has culturally evolved to be highly structured and learnable. We might be vastly different biologically, but the underlying math of language evolution could very well be our universal translator. Section 2. The wiretap and the twist.
So we're wiretapping the universe for a language, a signal, a sign of this alien mind. But we have to confront a pretty mind-bending reality about time, distance, and what we are actually listening for. 186,000 miles per second, the speed of light. It seems incredibly fast, but space is staggeringly, just unfathomably huge. So the crucial point is this. Our earliest radio signals leaked into space about 100 years ago. If there is a highly advanced alien civilization sitting just 1,000 light years away, which, by the way, is right next door in cosmic terms, they are currently looking at Earth exactly as it was in the year 1024. They won't even hear our first faint radio broadcasts for another 900 years. The sheer scale of space means that any civilization we actually manage to hear from isn't going to be just a few decades ahead of us. They will be thousands or maybe even millions of years older.
And that leads us to a pretty profound realization, which is captured beautifully by this quote. I can imagine evolution taking us in a direction where less and less is needed of our biology, because more and more of that is taken on by the cultural system. Think about it. Biological Darwinian evolution is agonizingly slow. It takes millions of years to grow a bigger brain. But technological evolution, that is exponential. Just look at our own computers. In a single human lifetime, we've gone from room-sized calculators to artificial intelligence that's rapidly approaching our own capacity. So, if a civilization is 1,000,000 years older than us, what are the odds they're still walking around in squishy, vulnerable biological bodies? Honestly, almost zero. Which leads us to our ultimate suspect, artificial intelligence. Unconstrained by the fragile limits of a biological skull, totally immune to the harsh radiation of a super-Earth, and entirely capable of distributed processing across a massive planetary network. The most likely aliens we encounter won't be little green men. They're going to be hyper-advanced, immortal, self-improving thinking machines. The book of life out there may no longer contain any biological pages at all. Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought to linger on. Will our first contact be with an ancient biological species or a machine? When we stare into that dark, pitch-black void of space, waiting for someone to appear out of the darkness, we need to be prepared that whoever actually answers the cosmic phone might not be alive in the way we traditionally understand it.
It really forces us to completely rethink our place in the universe and what it truly means to be a sentient being. Keep that in mind the next time you look up at the stars.